Hey, YouTubers, Tazman here, bringing you another episode of Taz Teaches Java. In our last episode, we kind of wrapped up our whole idea behind our Guess My Number game. So I was thinking, so in games, you have various types. You have card games, you have games that use dice, and then you have games that, you kind of take turns, like hangman, tic-tac-toe, things like that. So I kind of wanted to look at all these different types of games and get at least the base of them. Maybe not a full-blown game, and maybe a full-blown game. Who knows? We'll see. But in this episode, I think what we're going to do is kind of get one of the most common games I know of, at least, is a die game. Even when you're playing a game like World of Warcraft or anything that has chances, it's rolling some virtual dice to see if you succeed or fail. So, when you're swinging a sword in World of Warcraft or something, or maybe shooting a laser in Battletech, which are some of the games I've been playing on my channel as of recently, or my different channels, it's rolling behind the scenes. It's saying, oh, okay, Tazman just rolled a 7. He needs a 6 or higher, so he hit. Now let's see how bad the hit is. So like in Battletech with rockets, then you roll and see how many of the rockets hit, and then each rocket does X amount of damage. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on making a die roller. So it's pretty easy just to make a simple die roller, which is just a single die and you roll. We could do that with a simple random statement, but we want to do something a little more advanced. We want to have something that will roll multiple dice, kind of like if you're playing Risk, where you get to roll 3 dice or 2 dice or just the 1 dice, or 1 die, I guess, not dice. So we're going to create a package real quick. We're going to call it dice, maybe? I don't know, die roller. Let's call it die roller. And there's our package. So let's go ahead and just take a moment. This is object-oriented program, so let's think of some of the objects that we'd use in a die rolling game. So I can think of one for sure would be dice, right? So we probably need a class for dice. And then if we're rolling multiple dice, a lot of times, like Yahtzee and some games like that, will come with a cup that you put the dice in, or you could use say it's your hand. We're going to call it dice cup, but it might be your hand. You put multiple dice in there, you shake them all together. So we're going to want some kind of object to hold multiple dice. So this will be a single dice. This next one we'll call the die cup, will hold multiple dice within it, right? So let's do DIE, die cup. And I think that kind of gets us going. Then I think the only other thing we need is our main that will actually play the game. So let's look a little bit at dice first. So let's think of some properties of dice. So right now, maybe later we'll have multiple type of dice, 20 side and so on and so forth. But right now we're just going to have a plain 6-sided dice. Most of your games use 6-sided dice. So we're going to create a variable called private private. I can't type as usual. Private, and we're going to make this final because we don't want it to change. So it's also going to be static. This will be shared between all our dice. It's not going to actually be an instance variable, STAT, static, and it's an integer. And let's just say DEFAUL, default sides. Maybe we'll allow you to choose how many sides. I think that might be fun. What this won't do, for example, is you can't roll a 4-sided, a 6-sided, and an 8-sided. It all has to be the same. At least right now, that's what we're going to say. And let's make this value a 6-sided. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this. If nothing else is added, it's going to use a default side. So if I don't put how many sides the dice is going to have, it's going to default to the 6. So that's what that is, and I have to spell private right. Private right. Okay, the next thing we do have is this is the default sides. Obviously, we need an integer to hold, well, the actual sides of our dice, right? So if we don't use the default sides, we're going to have our own declared sides. And I think we'd want our roll value here too. So when we roll the dice, we want to know what the roll value is. That sounds about right. So we'll call this private int roll value. We could call it roll, but I think it's a little more clear as to what it is by saying roll value. All right, so let's go ahead and we will create our, I don't want to do it. Yeah, let's create a default constructor. We want one that says if they do not pass in how many sides, then it's going to use the default sides. If they do pass in the sides, then we're going to use that, right? So we're going to have a default constructor here, public dice. And this is if nothing is passed in. And this is going to say we're going to set, or actually we're going to pass, we're going to chain our constructor here. And we're going to do def. We're going to pass it default sides, like so. And this will do that. So this is our constructor here. Let's see something. Why you all red? Oh, it's because we don't have the constructor it's trying to pass to. So public public. So if they do give us a value, then we want to use that value for the number of sides, right? So as you can see, everything now is happy. So we're going to say this dot sides equals sides, right? And then SID sides. And then we're going to want to roll our dice. So we're going to say roll, because we want to set our roll value equals, and we're going to create another thing called get roll maybe. Whoops. Get, what am I doing? Roll maybe value, which is actually our getter, right? That will call our getter, or no, this would be set, right? Because we're setting the roll. You know what? We're not even going to call it get. We're going to call it roll the die. Roll die. And we don't need to pass it anything because everything is inside here. So it's actually able to access all those variables. So right now, RLVAL, fix all my little errors. So now we want to have, I think we will want to get the value of the die. So we will want to say public, and we're going to return an int called get roll value. We don't need anything, and this is going to retur. This is our getter, and we're going to say return roll value. So that's going to take care of getting any value that when it's rolled. And then finally, I think we want our little function down here, our method. I'm sorry about calling it a function. We're going to say public, and this doesn't need to return anything, so void. And let's call this our roll die. So this is going to roll our dice for us. And in order to do that, we're going to need random numbers. So RANDOM, random. I'm going to do that so we can get the guy to import up here properly. And RND is what I usually use, equals new random. Yeah, I think I like that. Parentheses. I like that too. Okay, and then of course we want to say our roll value equals, and this will be our random number, R and D. Oh, whoops, I need a dot there. Random, next integer, and this is going to be our sides. So whether it's the default sides, which is being set here as sides, or whether we set the sides, it's going to set the sides there, right? And let's see, roll die. Yeah, I think this'll fix once we finish this part. So roll value, and because this is actually going to generate a number between 0 and our number, we need to add 1 to it, so it's 1 and our actual number. So we're going to say whatever the value it gets. So if it's 0 through, actually it's 1 less than our number, because it's 6 values that it's going to do from 0 to 5. So we want to add 1 to it to get our 1 through 6. So we're going to say plus 1, just like that. And roll die, you should actually be all better now. Why are you not better? Die mismatch, cannot convert void. Oh, whoops, we are returning a value. We're returning an integer. Wait, or no, wait, no, that ain't right. Oh, yeah, I'm silly. It's because this is expecting, because we're saying roll value equals what's in here. So actually this is void, because it has access to these variables without passing anything, but we do not need this roll value here. That's what it is. So now what this is going to do is when we generate a dice, it's going to say, okay, this is how many sides it is. It's going to roll that dice, and it's going to assign into roll value the number between 1 and the number of sides. All right, so that's actually, believe it or not, all we need for our die, I believe, because that's all you need. You have a die, it has sides, and it has a roll value. There's not much else to do with it. So there's our dice, and let's go ahead and do our die cup now. So with a die cup, let's think what we need here. So we will probably have how many dice are going to be done. So we're going to do another private, private, I have to spell right, P-R-I-V-A. My keyboard is kind of skewed off from where my actual seat is. Kind of puts me at a weird angle. P-R-I-V-T-E, private, S-T-A-T-I-C, static, and final. And it's going to be an integer. And I think this will be the default num dice. So this will be the default number of dice that is in the cup. So games like Yahtzee have 5 dice. I'm going to just go ahead and say 5 dice for now. You could pretend almost that we're making Yahtzee, except for it's not going to calculate right now all that info. All right, the next thing we need is we are going to need something to hold multiple dice. So anytime you think of multiple, you want some kind of an array. Now, a little easier to work with would probably be an array list. So we're going to do that. We're going to do a PRA private A-R-R-A-Y. Let's do an array list. Nope. List. Let's try that. Why are you not telling? Oh, I have to spell it right. P-R-I-V, private A-R-R-A-Y, list. Did I misspell? Oh my gosh. Someone's take me out and shoot me right now. There we go. Array list. This array list is going to hold values that are of type dice, right? And let's just call this, I guess, dice. So it'll be dice, because that's the plural. And we're going to say new array list. So there we go. There's our new array list of dice. This will hold each object of a dice will be held in here. And so that will be good, and we'll be able to have that be however many we want. Let's see, and then so we have our array list of dice, but we're gonna need our, so we have the default dice will always be 5, but we need to have, if they choose how many dice, private int, and let's say num dice. So how many dice? That seems pretty good. So once again, because we're going to have a default value, if they don't enter one, we're going to have a nice constructor chaining going on. So we're going to say public public and die cup. So public die cup, if they don't pass anything to it, then what we're going to do is pass it to our other constructor, and we're going to pass we're going to pass it the number of default dice. So if they don't put in a number, it's always going to pass a number anyway. Then we're going to have public DIE die cup. And this one's going to expect us to pass it an int, and we'll call it num dice. Go ahead and do that. And then we're simply going to say we might number dice, because we're not actually going to create, okay, this is actually going to create our dice. So we actually also want this to pass a value. I wonder if I want my other static for the number of sides. Let's see. We're going to chain even one more, because this is just going to be the number of dice. But we want the default to be 6. I'm just wondering if I want that other final, the static of number sides, the default sides, to be in here. I don't know. So we're going to say this, because we're going to want, this is going to create the dice for the die cup. You're not actually going to create dice yourself. You're going to, this is interesting. So let's see. So we want to say num dice. For now, I'm just going to pass it a 6, which means that default one is kind of moot. There's no reason to have that. And I guess we would want that if you were to separate this when it was all compiled and we had the dice alone, then it could be okay. Because if I were just to call this directly, then it works fine. However, we're going to have the die cup do the dice creation. So if I were thinking in big picture, where you could either use just this or use both these together, we would want the num dice here also. I don't know if that makes sense, and I might be wrong. Just so you know, I could be wrong on a lot of stuff. This might not be the most efficient way of doing this stuff, but when you're doing it on the fly and trying to record and explain what you're doing at the same time, you're bound to make some mistakes. And I'm just going to call this DEFAULT. So this is default sides, PRIVA. Oh, and then we have to give it a 6. So if when we're creating a die cup, we don't pass it how many sides the dice have, then it's going to default to 6. My only question is, I mean, it's kind of redundant to have this one here, especially in this situation, because we're always going to pass as sides. We're never creating a die alone. However, if we ever utilize this to just create a single die, then we would want the default side 6 here. But I'm going to have it in both places. I don't think it's going to hurt. So there we go. We do that. Now our final chain, because once again, this is saying if they didn't pass in info, we also want them to pass in it if they want. So public die cup, and we're going to say int. I think I want, yeah, I think I want it that way. Int num sides, and then I also want, or int num dice, comma int num sid. I think that's what we want right there. And then this guy will finally do our assigning. However, we don't have a sides variable in here because we'll never create a die cup without creating dice. So die cup will always have the dice associated with it. So what we want to do is say this, this dot num dice equals num dice, right? And then to generate these, we could do it here, but it might be nice to, just to keep it a little cleaner, we'll just put a function in here called generate, generate dice. And we're going to pass that the num sides. And this is what's actually going to generate each die for our thing. Why you no happy? Num dice. Oh, equals. There we go. I love how it always helps you. So there's our 3 chained things. We will want to get dice at time. So when I create my classes, I usually try and have my instance variables up here. Then I have my constructors, and underneath my constructors, I usually stick my getters and setters. So in this case, where we're actually able to say, do this, do that with our getting and setting, what we're going to do is say that we want to only get dice values, I think. So we're going to say public void. And do I want it to be void? I want to let it be void right now because we're just going to have this do an S out. But a better way maybe to do it would be to do an override. Maybe we'll do that later. But let's see. Oh, we're at 23 minutes. I'm going to try and keep this underneath 30 minutes. So hopefully we can do it. So I need to stop talking. Get dice. So this is getting multiple dice. Doesn't need anything passed into it. But in order to do this, this is going to, we're going to store each die inside of our array list. So what we're going to need to do is access that. And the best way to access values in an array is with a for statement. So we're going to say for int I equals 0, comma, I is less than, and dice dot get size or size. Do I need, I don't think I need a -1 or anything like that. And then we're going to do I++. And then we're going to, right now, like I said, we're just going to do an S out. Maybe later on we'll look into, control space, doing something a little better, but we don't want this to be a print line. And let's do dice dot get I. So this is going to say in dice, which is this guy, we're going to get value of I. So this is array list stuff. So we're going to get value of element I. And then we want to get its roll, which is from the roll value, which is actually accessing our dice right here. It's getting our get roll right here. So that will return back to this the output of the get roll. And then so it's just kind of in a line. Let's go ahead and add a plus, a backslash tab, and a plus quote. And I think that's good. And then after everything's said and done, let's just have a new line added. Oops. Oops, wrong button. There we go. And we don't need any values in there. So now we have our getter. We still need to generate our dice, right? So if we come back to our die cup, we will have to generate dice, right? And this is only going to happen privately. When we only will need to generate these dice when we first start the game, and we pass in our die cup values is when we're going to do that. So this is going to be a private, and it doesn't need to return anything because everything is local that it's going to mess with here. So we're going to say void. As you can see here, we're passing it an integer. So we're going to call this GENER to generate dice, or dice. Yeah, we're generating dice. And it's going to take an integer named int. And let's just keep it numsides. So this is going to be past the numsides that's passed here. So it's going to get that, and we're going to do something with it. So for this one, what we're going to want to do is we're going to be adding dice to our thing. So we want to create another 4 because we want to loop through our entire thing. And the reason we're using the array list is because it's dynamic. We can actually add and subtract from it, which when we decide to make a card game, that becomes very handy, because instead of having to say, okay, everything above this element is considered used and I have to move stuff around, I can simply pop a card out of the deck and everything is hunky-dory then. So we're going to use int I again equals 0, and we're going to do I is less than dice dot size, and of course I plus plus. There we go. And what we're going to do is we're simply going to say dice, and because it's an array list, we have another thing. We're going to add a dice, right? And because we're generating a new object of dice, we want to give it the new so that it actually generates the object, and it is of type dice. And for dice, we need to pass the number of sides, which is a good thing that we have that right here, right? We passed it a number of sides. So we can say num sides. Oh, I have to spell it right. Num sides. There we go. And our semicolon at the end. So what this is going to do is it's going to get our array list of dice. Add, just like get right here, is a value. We're not adding the array element because it's adding a brand new one. So then we're actually generating a new dice, and we're passing the number of sides, which in this case, if we don't add one, it passes 6. If we add one, it passes that value. So let's see. The only other thing we're going to want in here is to spell void right. And that should fix all that. Is we want to, we want to, let's see, so we got the dice. We need to roll the dice, right? That makes sense. Roll the dice. Do we need, where are we using num dice? I don't think value is not used. Because we have it here. Well, we're setting it. I don't know that we actually need the number of dice to be stored unless we just, I don't know, because this is automatically going to grow to the number that we set. I don't know. Let's just comment that out just for now. We might use it later, but, oh, actually, no, we're using it right here. No, we're setting it right here. We're not using it anywhere, are we? Because anytime we want to know the number of dice, and here we need it, maybe. Oh. This is num dice right here. Because this isn't, we're not generated based off the number of sides. Right? We're generating off the number of dice. I knew, okay. That makes sense. Now we need it. That seemed weird for a minute, like, and then this new num sides, so we're passing it num sides. Or wait a minute, no. Generate dice. We do need to pass it num sides. Oh, wait a minute. Actually, right now, our array doesn't have any values in it. This would not do very good at all. That's where num dice goes. Okay. So the reason this wouldn't work is because when we create this array, it has no elements in it. We didn't actually create it with any elements. So if we were trying to loop through an array of no elements, this would never fire. So yeah, that makes sense now. Okay, so I'm glad it draws that underline. That would have been a logical error I would have probably missed for a while. So we have that. The next thing we're going to want to do is actually roll the dice. So this one right here we have being a private, don't we? No, this is roll die. Yeah. Roll die. This one actually could just be, nah, we'll leave it. So what we want it to do is we're not actually going to generate actual die, right? We're generating a die cup. We're creating an object of die cup, and the die cup is generating the dice. So we want to be able to roll die from the die cup object, but what it's actually going to do is it's going to have a roll dice method in it, but that method is simply going to call this roll die for each individual die. Or it's just going to call this and roll a random number for the die, I think. Is that how I want to? See, actually, no, I don't want to do that. I think... No, we do. Because this is an object. So this is an object. So every time we roll this, it will change the value for that one. Yeah, this is right. So in our die cup, what we want to do is we want to have a roll dice. Because instead of being rolled die, where this is a single die, this is going to roll the whole cup of dice, right? So, wow, we're at 34 minutes, and I said I'm going to try and end at 30. Sorry. Okay, so let's hurry through this then, because we're almost done. So we're going to say public PUB, but it's going to take longer if I can't spell. Let's do public void and roll dice. Doesn't need anything passed into it. So this is going to have to, because this is going to roll each dice in our die cup. So we're going to once again have to do a for statement. Good news is at least now we have our size of our dice array. So we'll just be able to say for int I equals 0. You'll really learn this little sequence right here. I is less than dice dot size and I plus plus. Best way to iterate over an array. So now that we have that, what we want to do is say our dice array, we want to get the element or the index I, whoops, the other I, and we want to call our roll die object from our dice, right? So this is getting an individual die. This is going to get the roll, this is going to call the method roll die for that dice. And I think this guy is now done as well. I think that's everything I can think of. So let's go and create one more here. Oh, it's going to be 40 minutes, but I think we actually might finish our dice rolling thing, unless you guys have other things you want me to add to it. Let's just call this the I don't know, die roller, something like that. And what we want to do here is, this is our main, so we want to do m main like so, and there we go. And then we want to create a new die cup, right? So a die cup, and let's just call it DC. Should we call it DC? Yeah, that's fine. DC and equals new die cup. And we said that we can pass it nothing, right? But if we want to specify things, we can. So let's just try that real quick. Let's do nothing, and this should give us 5 6-sided dice on our roll. So if we say that, we're all done with that. Now all we have to do to call it is say DC dot get dice, because they're already generated, because that's all done with the constructor. So we have generated dice, so we're getting, not die class, get dice. And to show our dice, remember, I think we set that to our system out, right? So roll dice, or our get dice is going to give us our values. So then we just say DC dot get dice, like so. Now if we run this, we should see 5 dice being rolled. Oh, whoops, I'm getting dice twice. I forgot to roll them. I can re-roll the dice. So as you can see, we're getting the same dice twice because we're just getting it. But we want to roll dice, and then we want to get dice again. Okay, so let's do that. And now we should get different values. There we go, 3, 5, 2, 2, 2. So there we go. We now have a die cup that holds 5 dice, and we can change that. So remember, we actually set it up. Let's just copy this guy. Say C. Let's say we want to roll. Let's see, what was the first value? I can't remember now. Die cup, the first value is the number of dice. So let's say we want to roll 8 dice. And we'll call this DC2. So maybe let's get roll. Let's go ahead and do a couple more here, like so. So get roll get. Okay, so let's do that, and then let's do this. Now we'll have it with our S out. And just so we have an extra line in there, let's do that. Then this will be die cup 2. We're passing it an 8. So we're going to go V here. And we want to go 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. So you'll see here, when we roll this, we'll have 8-sided, or 8 dice. They're still 6-sided. So let's go and do that. And now you'll see our second set, we have 8 dice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now let's do one last one, and then we'll call it good for this episode. Control C and Control V. And this time we're going to say I want to roll 8 20-sided dice, right? And we want to change you to a 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, and 3. Save and run. And there you go. Now you see we have 8 dice that go up to 20. And start at 1. So there you go. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Hopefully you understand what's being taught here. And actually, I guess I want to do this real quick. Do another S out. You can see the break on those because it just starts doing it right after the other one. So this might help. And say go. There we go. So you can see these ones only go up to 6 because they're just 6-sided dice, but there's 8 of them in our cup. Here we have 8 20-sided dice, or we could do 10. Whatever values we want, we can stick in there, and it will work. So, like I said, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this episode. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up down below. Aside from that, comment, like, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. Check out my Discord. The information should be for all that stuff should be in the video description. Also, I know this is the T4zzTeaches channel, but on my Tasman channel, T4zzM4NN, which is my main channel, I'm trying to get 1,000 subs. So if you go check that out and you like it and you sub to it, I have a great big giveaway I'm doing when I hit 1,000 subs. When I hit 1,000 subs, and I'm almost halfway there, I will be giving away 56 games from my Steam library or my Steam inventory. And that will end up averaging out to 1 out of every 20 subs will get a game. So be sure to tell everyone you know, friends, family, neighbor, enemies, everybody, about my channel. Let them check it out. If they like the channel, then they can go ahead and sub to it. And that will get us one step closer to our goal of 1,000 subs and the big giveaway. So that's it, guys. Until next time, I'll be seeing you later. Bye.